Hello, you are listening to the Natural Healing Show for UK Health Radio. I'm your host, Catherine Carrigan, medical intuitive healer and Amazon #1 best-selling author. You can find out more about me and my work at catherinecarrigan.com and unlimitedenergynow.com. While you're there, definitely sign up for my newsletter so you can learn even more about what you can do to heal yourself naturally. Now, our guest today is the one and only Jaya Ashmore. And if you haven't already, I recommend highly that you go and listen to my first interview with Jaya Ashmore. Jaya Ashmore is a meditation teacher and artist, and you can find out more about Jaya Ashmore and her wonderful work at jayaashmore.org, jayaashmore.org. And when I interviewed Jaya Ashmore before, she and I spoke about how meditation heals you naturally. Now, today we're going to talk about a subject near and dear to many of us, especially at this time, which is how the practice of meditation can contribute to world peace, inner peace within ourselves, and also peace in the world. So, Jaya Ashmore, will you share for our audience what you know? I know there's been a little bit of research done about meditation and how when a group of people in an area meditate, violence goes down. Will you share what you have learned about that scientific research?
I've heard a little bit about studies. I think it was in the transcendental meditation community where they took the statistics for violent crime during a time period where they had a certain number of people meditating, and when they had enough people meditating, that statistics of violent crime actually showed a decrease. They showed more literal peace happening in the outer world, going along with the quieting of the human mind and the opening of the human heart. So that can be a kind of invitation or welcome to us to not give up and to stay connected to what's important and to go from there, that every situation can be workable. And kind of being in tune with reality, in tune with this mysterious reality and mysterious life. There might be possibilities that we can't imagine.
Right. Now, at the time of this interview, we've lived through over 2 years of the coronavirus pandemic, which was hard for many of us, and lots of lockdowns and isolation and all the economic upheaval and the changes that have happened as a result of that. And then most recently, Russia has invaded Ukraine. And so there's a lot of concern for those of us who want to contribute about what we can do at this time to contribute to world peace. So Jaya Ashmore, as a meditation teacher, why does slowing down help us respond creatively to life?
Yeah. I think it's really helpful in a way that we can be kind of pricked into our sense of connection to humanity around the world when we are aware of suffering. But then we need to be taking great care about what's actually happening in my experience when I hear the news. So just bringing some simple mindfulness there. I hear something or I see something, and there's a response inside me. And some of that is just the fact of our connectedness, that we are interconnected. And so there is a response. And some of that is our own pain response. And so really taking care and healing that is also possible in these moments, because our pain comes up and then love wants to get in there, and we can let our own personal pain be touched as well. And then we can feel how good it feels to have a little bit lighter heart, more room for the world in our heart, how good it is for a human being to live with the big heart that we were born with, rather than the idea that we can't take it, that it's too much for us. So when we slow down, right now, everybody could just feel their feet or let their out breath be a little bit longer. And notice when I, or who I think I am, slows down, if we give it a little bit of time, something quickens. There's something that has a more life, intelligence, and kindness has more of a chance to flow through. And so that's just a wonderful thing to notice again and again. I slow down for a little few moments. There can be an upliftment. There can be a sense of, okay, now I can take another step.
So one of the things that we say in energy healing is that the slower you go, the faster chi flows.
Awesome. That's great.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so when we slow down, as in a meditation practice or a Tai Chi or Qigong practice or a yoga practice or a yin practice, a yin yoga or restorative yoga practice, and we really slow down, then we're more aware of the energy in ourselves and around us. And, there's more healing that actually occurs.
Yes. We let it happen more. And that when we let it happen, the wholeness that what we're part of that's greater than us can move through. And that feels good to us, and it feels good to what's around us too. So it's a great, simple practice that's accessible right here.
So earlier in the pandemic, I interviewed an expert who runs a community for empaths, highly sensitive people who are, feel the energy of everyone everywhere. And it definitely has been a difficult time for highly sensitive people during the pandemic and now during the war. And for example, I get on Twitter and it's actually good because they'll say, warning, this may be an upsetting image. So we have a choice about what to allow and not to allow in our consciousness. How does being present help us respond to global situations?
Yes. It's so important to make sure that each of us has enough ground and support and connection to life to bear our sensitivity so that our sensitivity can be our gift. So that's a whole great kind of department in meditation, is what can help us grow our sensitivity and not hate our sensitivity. Grow our sensitivity and feel how we can start to enjoy some of the nuances of all that we can feel. And that's by practicing lowering the alarm system so that we can have sensitivity and not be overwhelmed by what we're receiving. And so when we are present, more in touch with reality, we're more in touch with something greater that we're part of. And that can really help when someone is sensitive or someone feels isolated, because when we're in touch with reality, reality is wholeness. Reality is open. Reality is not me as a separate lone individual self that has to take it all by myself. When I'm more in touch with reality through just being present, I can feel something in my body or see a color or hear a sound, for example. I'm not alone. And so I don't have to take all of the intensity of life through my nervous system. That can be a bit shared. And I'm in touch with the intelligence and kindness of life that can flow through me. I'm in touch with the togetherness of every single experience, every human experience that we have, every emotion, every tragedy, every comedy is shared. And so there's not as much tendency to fall into shame. And then, which is one of the main things that blocks, just letting that inspiration. We have a pause, we feel a bit present, a good idea comes to mind or a good impulse comes to mind, and we go with it and it feels good and it does good. And that helps build our confidence in not something out there, but through confidence in what I can touch in here, I go beyond the duality of inner and outer. And so the creative response to global situations can be a small thing here that has a wide effect, or it can just be a small, beautiful thing. And we also know that in our own hard times, the smallest little gesture, a smile or a card or a word or a hand on the shoulder, are some of the most supportive things. And then, of course, logistical stuff, food, clothes. I'm lucky here to be close enough to Ukraine and some Ukrainian people in the area, so I can actually literally give my coat and it's going in the truck tomorrow to Ukraine. And so that can also be helpful, is actually discerning what is my share, what is the action that I can do when and where and how right now. And that's an embodiment or an enactment of our interrelatedness, of our open-heartedness, of our togetherness.
And that's because you live in Spain.
That's right.
Yes, you live in Spain. So I remember years ago, someone saying something incredibly wise to me. And she said, if you're a highly sensitive person, you have to become strong enough to handle your sensitivity.
Great.
Right?
Yeah.
And, here I am speaking as a medical intuitive healer. And I do talk to many people all over the world who are highly sensitive. And I say, until you learn how to master and handle your sensitivity, then you get a lot of what I refer to as psychic whack, where all of a sudden you just feel really bad and you don't even know why. It's like you may tune in and go, this isn't me, but you don't even know what it is. So how can the practice of meditation help sensitive people do a better job handling their sensitivity?
Yes. Well, I think that what happens in meditation, first of all, is an organic process of empowerment by being in touch with reality, which includes openness and flow. It includes mutuality, and it includes wholeness. When we're in touch with reality, that's healing. And so slowly, sometimes noticeably and sometimes not noticeably, however sensitive someone is, that sensitivity starts to, I call it bearing capacity. We start to be able to bear the voltage, and then life gives a little bit more voltage and we start to grow a little bit more bearing capacity. And that's something that happens through the healing of meditation. Also, we get to find out that even when it's this intense, I can still find somewhere inside me that is deeply okay. There can be intensity and okayness. I can feel my nervous system going off. I can feel the alarm system happening. And I can also practice feeling what else. It's one of my favorite meditation instructions. And what else? So yes, this, and what else? A color green, my backbone, contact with the ground. So that we're not just focalized into that one intense channel, but we start to spread the energy back out from the places that it's gotten habituated to flow. We can spread the energy back out to more of a sense of wholeness. So it's a chance in meditation to get to know how organic life is, that if we allow some space, healing does happen step by step, little rootlet by rootlet, twig by twig. And our bearing capacity grows, but then people will be surprised to feel again, oh, this is intense again, I'm so sensitive again. So knowing that there's a kind of periodicity that, like with learning anything or growing anything, there's springtime, summertime, autumn, and winter. And so we might be really sensitive and then we start to get the hang of it. And then life is like, okay, here's some more energy that's flowing through you because your heart is that big. And I think with this example of with the war in Ukraine and many people feeling the heartbreak of that, it can be, sometimes it's like that practice of like, well, what if the worst thing would happen? Like, what is your worst fear? And then it's like, well, even my worst fear is not actually that bad because I'm deeply okay no matter what. No matter what would happen, there's a deep okayness. I'm beloved of life already without having to prove anything or get anything. That experience can come through sometimes by feeling, what are the symptoms in my body of this heartbreak, of this alarm? And actually, we might find that we want the heart to break open even further. We say, I can feel this much connection to the people of Ukraine, then I can let that sense of connection spread to Yemen and Afghanistan and Ethiopia, and I don't break. The heart breaks open. The defenses around my wound break open, but I love the openness. That's a discovery that can happen too, that I think comes with enough ground and enough connection that we can become friendly with the sensitivity, let life start to heal the alarm around it and the places we've been wounded around it, and start to glory in how sensitive we are.
Beautiful observation. So on that note, let's take an initial break from one of our commercial sponsors. Hang in there with us and we'll be right back. So Jaya Ashmore, what does meditation teach us about responsibility and peace?
I like the word responsiveness as a way to start to understand responsibility, our ability to respond. And I think it's one of the most fun things with the meditation practice is to start to recover our ability to respond and to realize that we matter. Sometimes we can get so caught up in what do people think of me, or am I doing okay, or kind of self-referential world. And when we come into meditation, we come more in touch with reality and in tune with reality. We start to be moved. We might notice something about another person. We happen to notice them reaching for a tissue, and are they crying? Are they ill? And we just might give a kind word, and we realize that made a difference to them. Just those small kind of moments that organically we come across and happen, and we start to regain confidence that we are already participating in reality, and that we are making impressions, and like entering that mutuality with dignity and with fun, with joy. So I think responsibility as a word is usually has a problematic sense, and we might feel overly responsible. We feel so much care and hurt when we see the destruction of war, that we wish we could do everything all at once to make it all better. And so the art of the generous heart of a human being is, Wendell Berry has this beautiful phrase, the strenuous outline of enough. What is my share? What can I do now, when, with whom, how much? No, I've been teaching meditation on donation for a couple of decades, and it's a hard practice for people, because I don't say one meditation costs $50 or whatever, and people say, I'm sure there's secretly a real price that you want, and no, it's what does your heart, it's a hard practice. What does your heart feel to give, and when, and to whom? But it's a beautiful practice to willingly give, and to take that risk, to be in that mutuality, that dignity, that empowerment. So coming out of the heaviness, the sense of should, and releasing what we can do rather than what we should do. Feeling how good it feels sometimes when we find the strenuous outline of enough. From a place of enoughness, the strenuous outline of enough. We can't do it all, but we can. What can we do?
Beautiful.
What is our share?
What is our share? So I have to share with our audience a story about the word responsibility. So years ago, and by years ago, I'm maybe almost 20 years ago now, I went to Findhorn, which is a community of healers in Scotland, to play a game called the transformation game, and you play with angels. And I remember at the time, my guardian angel for the game was the angel of responsibility. And I remember as soon as I got the angel of responsibility, my first thought was, oh no, oh no, more responsibility. And then the people that I was working with, they were like, no, the word responsibility means able to respond. And so I think what you're talking about, Jaya Ashmore, is that meditation empowers us to feel and able to respond in whatever ways that feel right for us in any given moment, because we tune into the flow of ourselves, of the world around us, of the divinity, and then we are able to respond better.
Yes.
As opposed to being
Exactly.
overloaded and overwhelmed, which is how a lot of us feel frequently.
Yes.
So, Jaya Ashmore, how does the healing and clarity that we receive from meditation translate into care and responsiveness?
Yes, exactly. I think that is true, that in meditation, healing happens, and clarity in the sense of it's more present to us, or we're more present to what is really important in this life. What do we cherish? What do we really like in ourselves, not in our ideology? What do we really cherish? What's the sparkle in life? And then when we start to orient towards that, rather than to fear and lack, we orient towards what's that sparkle in life. We're called by that. We feel that North Star, and we're moved by joy. Then it's a response. If we think about if someone is doing something to or for us because they think they should, and how that feels to us, or if someone just does something out of joy, it gives them joy to give us that piece of fruit or whatever. It's almost the joy is more important than the fruit, is almost as nourishing as the fruit. And so recovering our responsiveness does start from enough healing that we can kind of dare to bear all that, like, wow, it's just so simple. This spark in life is what matters. And that's what we're kind of seeking in everything that we seek, and loving in everything that we love. And what if I live that way? What if I put that center in my life? What happens? What happens? And that is trust, to dare without any guarantee, not being certain through an ideology, like my heart feels moved in this way. And to discover we don't die, we don't fall apart, and it's beautiful. And sometimes it ends up giving in many directions. It's not just we gave an apple to a person, but then it brought a smile to maybe a few people, or it tends to give more than just the measurable moment.
What is compassion, and how is it different from pity?
Yes, this is one of the most important and challenging practices as humans. And we can also reflect when we've been in difficulty and we've received pity, how has that felt? And when there's been compassion, hopefully we have that experience too. And then we can reflect on when I have felt pity towards someone, how did that feel? And when I felt compassion, that means I'm with them. Like I'm with you. I'm not in your same situation. I'm not in your maybe downward spiral. I'm not in your place of danger, but I'm with you. And I think that willingness to be with each other is powerful and empowering, but it needs that bearing capacity. It's so easy to fall into pity. When my son was born, he was in the neonatal ICU for 8 days, and I saw that look of pity. And that was one of the first times I felt like people were on wanting to be, and were on another side of the glass, not wanting to be with me, as if that difficulty would be contagious or something like that, or maybe just afraid of not being able to bear it, or what do I say in this situation? And that was helpful. It was not so pleasant, but I was so involved in connecting with my son, and he's a great person, and we all got through it really well. But feeling the difference, but when we want to keep distance from what we notice as suffering, or when what helps us just be with it, without any trying to be a superhero, trying to fix it, but just with, and the magic that can happen there.
Yeah, my observation in my work as a medical intuitive healer, I talk about the 5 levels of healing: the physical, energetic, emotional, mental, and spiritual. And in my view, Jaya Ashmore, when we're in pity, we're in the ego mind. We've made a judgment. It's like, that's bad.
Yes.
And often when we look out into the world, our mind does that. Your mind has a job. It's sorting bad, good, want this, don't want that. And so when we're pitying, we're in our ego mind. And
Yes.
compassion, I would describe it as energetically as a heart-to-heart connection. It's a heart presence. And on a spiritual level, it's almost the same thing. It's an honoring of, this is my path, that's your path. I may not understand your path. I may not like your path. I may not want to do your path. I may not want to be in a city that's being bombarded or invaded. That would be my preference.
Yeah.
Right. But I can honor my path, and I can honor your path. And to me, that's what compassion is. And it's almost like coming from operating off of different channels, if you will.
Absolutely. And with compassion, the person is not equal to their difficulty. Their difficulty is there, but their dignity is there. And so dignity to dignity.
Beautiful observation. Now, how does meditation help when we know that heartbreaking things are happening?
Yes. Yes. I've noticed that heartbreaking things can be riveting, like our attention easily goes to the difficult and the negative. It really gets our attention. And so, first of all, I think it's important to, over time, kind of build a big cushion of practicing connecting to what's not difficult, so that when difficulty comes, which it does, we can simply meet it, and we can maybe stay with the aliveness in the situation, and we can stay tuned to how does life move through here, so that every situation is workable. Like you said, we might not wish for anyone to go through many situations that happen, but situations happen. And when they do, we don't need to let the situation take 100% of our attention. We can still be open to where's the opening through here? How does life flow through here? How does life dance with this? Even the most difficult situations. And I'm inspired by, I have a few World War II heroes and heroines who in a concentration camp was saying, even here I can say life is beautiful. Eddie Hillesum, yes.
Yeah, and having that capacity to find that peace within ourselves does make so much of life so much more bearable. Whenever I'm dealing with teenagers, or really anybody under the age of 20, one of the things that I'm compassionate about and aware of is that young people, they don't have all the tools that I do. They may not have the prayer practice or the yoga practice or the meditation practice, or they may not know many friends or people that they can really be honest to about what they're really feeling. And so, as you say, when we build up this inner arsenal of compassion, of self-care practices, when things come along, then we'll have the tools to flow.
Yes, exactly. Otherwise, the habit energies just take over. So if we can start to go against the currents of habit and have that practice of connecting and being in harmony, and then harmony invites harmony, rather than falling into disharmony, and then disharmony invites disharmony. But when difficulty comes, it can be useful to have a couple of practical tips. Let's say just something really simple like a pain in the knee. Is there some way I can change my position so that it's not painful? Okay, that's one option. Or what are the sensations, and what is the story in my mind, and what is the alarm system in my body mind? And is it possible to meet the alarm system and help that calm down? Is it possible to notice thought as thought, emotion as emotion, sensation as sensation, and what happens from there? And if I can come out of that, like you said, the sorting mind, which is, in a way, the root of our suffering, that we're dismissing so much and then overly focusing on so much. So if I can be open to the sensations in the knee and knowing thought as thought, emotion as emotion, but it doesn't magnetize me, life can really move in strange ways, and sometimes incredibly marvelous ways when we leave even a little bit of openness there. So just meeting sensation in the knee, that's, if I'm not doing damage to myself, it's a bit unpleasant, okay. But I meet it as not right and not wrong, as neutrally as I can. It's the dignity and mutuality. Then flow can happen. And we can be surprised.
And with that wonderful insight, we're going to take another break to listen to one of our commercial sponsors. So hang in there with us and we'll be right back. So Jaya Ashmore, a meditation teacher and artist of jayaashmore.org. I have a question about inner pictures. So I'll tell this story. So years ago, I was on a social media site, I believe it was on Twitter, and I saw an image that was so horrific that it took me about a week to get over it. And now here we are, and even with we are not living in Russia or Belarus or the Ukraine, because of the news and the social media sites, many of us can see photographs or videos of the horrific destruction, and these inner pictures can get into our mind. So how can the practice of meditation help us to cope or erase or blur or just deal with the inner pictures that can get emblazoned in our mind?
Yes. Well, I find that meditation can, first of all, help us take a little bit more seriously how impressionable we are. So to notice that one image that I saw last week is still here, and that might actually start to change my behavior. I might not, so I actually don't consume video or photo news as little as possible, audio and written, because I know that it would stay with me in a way that wouldn't be helpful. And then there's a practice I would call changing the channels. So if it's visual, then it might be important to open the eyes for a while. If someone is meditating with their eyes closed and the images come that are from the side of disharmony or fear, then opening the eyes can be helpful. And then changing the channels can be anything. It can be a simple sensory experience, but preferably something that's at least a bit pleasant. So letting the eyes look around simultaneously, that moving the eye muscles helps calm the nervous system a little bit, and then letting the eyes land somewhere that feels good. It doesn't have to be a spectacular rose bloom. It can be something really ordinary, but it feels good to look or to see, to receive that. And just giving a minute or two of meeting can be helpful. It can be worth playing with. Or what do I hear now? What are some sensations in the body? And even if the image keeps fighting for attention, it's like slowly leaving a radio channel and tuning to another channel. And sometimes it might be important to add a little bit more emotional quality. So it might be important to change the channel by remembering a moment of gratitude or appreciation, or feeling peaceful, or feeling no demand, and really letting that be as vivid as possible. And again, even if it's shaky, it doesn't mean change the channel like cluck, done, but it might be in and out, and just patience and not freaking out, and keep on practicing, because we practice so much putting our attention towards what's alarming, that's really easy for us. And we haven't practiced as much for most people. And therefore we need to practice more tuning into the harmony that invites more harmony.
So Jaya Ashmore, can peace and intensity coexist?
Yes, this is one of those, if someone would be interviewing peace or interviewing meditation, that question, like, what do people get wrong about you? I think we imagine that peace and intensity don't go together, but we could think about a time that we felt peaceful, and sometimes even the feeling of peace itself has an intensity to it, but a beautiful intensity. And I also, in that example of changing the channels, I would like to encourage people to notice that even if there's intensity in my mind, busy, worried, afraid, angry, rageful, whatever, I can still feel my body on the ground over here. And that's like a little whisper towards there can be peace while difficult things are going on, while challenging things are going on, while friction is going on. And we start to realize that there is a human capacity for peace in all circumstances, and that life has intensity, and peace has life in it, and peace is part of life. So they definitely can coexist. I think if we're trying to find peace as an escape from intensity, we're probably looking more for a shutdown state. And so I think it's really helpful to air this subject, that peace itself can have intensity. When we're quiet, the colors can be more vivid, the sounds, every sound can be more rich, every texture can be more, that's a kind of intensity that is fruitful and generative and yummy. And that can help us, that can really help for people who are especially sensitive, is to have those rich but more pleasant experiences, not going over the line that's alarming for someone, but however yummy is good for each person, to really bathe in that, whether through a memory or through a present moment, texture, image, color, sound, whatever, like let it be yummy. And then that gives a bit of a buffer for when difficulty comes along. And then we're less likely to take difficulty as a sign that there's something bad about me or wrong about me or something like that. It's just unpleasant.
Yeah, for me, as you're talking, Jaya Ashmore, I'm thinking about the orchids in my healing room, because they're so exquisite. They're just this wow. It's like, wow. And it really, it's an intensity, but it's quiet. And it's so incredibly uplifting. And if we can go into that vibration, which is beautiful and calm and grounded and steady, it's quite harmonious. And when we can come into resonance with that, it's incredibly healing. Can meditation help us live with an open heart no matter what?
Yes. Yes. It may seem ambitious or too much to ask, but in another way, just being really simple. Of course, there is a place or a space or a quality in life, in a human life, that does not go up and down in value according to pleasant or unpleasant circumstances, according to having more money or less money, according to having more friends or fewer friends. There's something that stays steady, that is lovable, that loves, that is unaffected by what happens. So we have the Rumi poetry that talks about something closer to us than our name, that is looking through our eyes at whatever we're searching for. It's in the look. And I think that's kind of easy to resonate with without necessarily having a scientific description for it. I think it's easy to just be really simple and feel, yeah, one of the worst things in a difficult situation is that tendency to believe that if I'm in a bad situation, I'm bad, or it's a bad sign, or I've done something wrong, or something like that, or they've done something wrong, whatever. But just, this is difficult and I'm okay. There is okayness, there is love, there is openness, there's flow, there's aliveness. In a way, it's like, of course. But then to bring that into sometimes a really intense emergency situation, it's easier to feel the calm and okayness in that than in everyday little frictions with people that we live with or live near. The more ordinary and common, the less likely we are to kind of meet it with our wholeheartedness. And so it can be helpful to hear that a little bit challenging, like in all circumstances. We would not wish those circumstances, the difficult ones, on anyone, but they happen sometimes. And that does not diminish the preciousness of that person.
Now, Jaya Ashmore, we talked at the beginning of this interview about scientific research shows that when enough people in an area meditate, that it reduces violent crime. How does meditation strengthen personal and collective resilience?
Yes. So the ways that meditation helps us get to know what is it like to live without the alarm system on all the time is the main thing towards starting to feel alive and be okay with being here and with being alive and being in this situation of interconnectedness and being so mutually impressionable, so sensitive, and also so powerful that other people are sensitive too. If we think about it too much, that can feel uncomfortable, but as we start to get in the flow of it and be more playful with that, a kind of playful sacredness that is not dependent on outcome, but it has good outcomes. This playful sacredness that it's not guaranteeing or promising, or I'll only do this if I know that will cause peace in Ukraine, but we just feel moved to connect for a while, and it feels good. And it seems to be, some people find that there can be like a wave of resonance that is a bit beyond time and space. I found the synchronicity of working with groups of people around the world online to be really remarkable, the kind of synchronicities that happen. Synchronicity of insight and challenge also, and then finding ways through and inspiration. And so I think that it's important to enjoy getting to know what it's like not to be our alarm system, but our alarm system comes on, but that's not who I am. And it's possible to live not stressed. It's possible to live not with the alarm system guiding us. So instead of living from fear, to live from love. And then we start to realize how fun it can be to have life's creativity coming through. So I think that is the main way that resilience happens in the person, but you can start to hear how that starts to affect directly and maybe indirectly in the community. So if we're in a room together and one person is in harmony, is feeling good, is feeling their well-being, is feeling the preciousness of human life, it has an effect. It also has an effect if someone is bringing friction there. But so we can start to, I mean, I think we need a little bit of resilience to even start to realize that we can have an effect on, and we do have effects on. And then what effect do we want, would we feel called to bring as best we can, that same quality of loving life and enjoying the surprise of what life brings through us. And so that heals relationships. It's sometimes a bit miraculous what kind of things happen when we just follow a single impulse that comes in a meditative, restful, kind of calm or happy or playful moment. We follow it and it just brings benefit. Sometimes we get to see that some of the benefits, and sometimes we find out 10 years later, you know, wow, that meant that much to you. Cool. So even when we don't talk about the more invisible, energetic ways that being in a harmonious state, I feel definitely helps more widely. But just very directly and logically, we can understand that if I'm coming from harmony, inviting harmony, letting harmony through, it's good to be around.
Yes, for sure. And one thing that we know scientifically is that living organisms resonate with the strongest biological oscillator. So for example, if there's two clocks in a room, that over time they're going to synchronize. And when we are in a state of peace, then other people around us, everyone around us, can resonate with that.
Yes.
So Jaya Ashmore of jayaashmore.com, any final thoughts for our audience, briefly?
Well, I just wish for us all to accept this time in human history where there seems to be so much at stake as a real encouragement to feel and consider what is important and precious, not with pressure, but what lifts the heart. What lifts the heart, and what would be one way each day that I could live a little bit more by that, according to that.
You've been listening to the Natural Healing Show for UK Health Radio. I'm your host, Catherine Carrigan, medical intuitive healer, Amazon #1 bestselling author. You can find out more about me and my work at catherinecarrigan.com and unlimitedenergynow.com. While you're there, definitely sign up for my newsletter so you can learn even more about how you can heal yourself naturally. You can learn more about Jaya Ashmore, her meditation and art and meditation teaching at jayaashmore.com. And remember, .org. And remember, when you meditate, you are contributing to peace on earth. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.